Hey guys, it's ETAPRIME back here again. Today I'm going to be building an awesome little DMG Game Boy for my daughter. This is actually an Easter present. I've been wanting to do this for a little while. Recently I did a GBA with an IPS screen for my son, and I wanted to kind of do the same thing here with a DMG for my daughter. So we're going to be adding a version 2 IPS screen to this Game Boy. Now I've seen this IPS screen in action and it looks absolutely beautiful in these DMGs. I also picked up an Easy Flash Junior flash cart so we can add some games here, and they're easily accessible for anybody. All of the parts used in this build, minus the old DMG, were gotten from retromodding.com. I paid out of pocket. This video is not sponsored whatsoever, but unfortunately they mixed up my color combination here. I had ordered a mint green shell with pink buttons, but they sent me a pink shell with mint green buttons. So a little odd, but either way I think it's still going to look pretty good. Now one problem that I have run into is the glass lens that I ordered was pink, and it was originally going to go on a mint green shell, so I'm not going to be using this for this video. Luckily, I also ordered a white, but at the time of ordering, they only had the plastic ones in stock, so this will have to be swapped out with a glass one later on, but I still think we can get everything together and make it look really nice. So yeah, I've been really interested in checking out this IPS screen for the DMG. I have seen some videos on it, and it looks really good, so I've been dying to get my hands on one and do a little build. As for the donor DMG here, I recently picked this up from a thrift store and a lot of consoles that I bought, and it's in pretty bad shape, but it is functional, so it's the perfect donor for this setup here. So let's go ahead and get right down to it. Now there are tons of tutorials online on how to do this. I'm just going to give you a brief walkthrough on how I assembled mine, but first things first, I need to disassemble the DMG. I will be reusing some of the components in the front of the unit, but most of this is going to be replaced with that RIPS version 2 IPS screen. Really, the only thing I'm going to be taking from the front here is the speaker, and I could have ordered one, but I totally forgot about it. So the stock speaker will work. I'm just going to desolder it and resolder it to the new RIPS board. But we will be reusing everything in the rear of the DMG for the new build. So I need to go ahead and disassemble the rear. So I've taken the rear PCB out and I've cleaned it up with some isopropyl alcohol, this little brush, and then finished it off with some canned air. Everything looks pretty good, and it was pretty dirty. So now I need to transfer the battery terminals. I'm just going to be pulling them from the old DMG shell and adding them to the new one. Luckily, when I got the old DMG, there were no batteries in it, so these aren't corroded or rusted at all. You can buy new ones if you want to, but you can also reuse the ones you have if they're in good shape. So I'm almost done with the rear half here. I've got the battery terminals in place. Now it's time to add the rear PCB to the new shell. I just need to put my screws in place, but with this rear shell, there is one spot that I need to cut with an X-Acto knife. And the front half of the shell also requires some modification for this IPS screen. There are 2 screw posts up top that need to be removed, plus a little nub up here. You can use a pair of side cutters, but I already have my Dremel ready to go. So with the front half of the shell taken care of, now it's time to move my attention to the IPS assembly. You can buy 2 versions of this kit from Retro Modding. You can get one that's fully assembled, which I probably should have. It does come with the speaker pre-soldered. Or you can buy the kit, which I have here. Now, if you're going to do this, I recommend spending the extra money and just getting the one that's pre-assembled, but it's still pretty easy to do. My only main concern with using the kit version is getting the screen lined up properly. As for adding the speaker, it's super easy as long as you have a soldering iron. So I've just removed the old speaker, and like I mentioned, I totally forgot to get a new one, but if I went back and reordered it or tried to get the shell color replaced, it would take about 2 weeks because the cough that's going around. But adding a speaker to the IPS board is super simple. It's just 2 little solder spots. Make sure everything's connected properly, and we're good to go here. One of the main reasons I chose to buy this from Retro Modding instead of eBay is because they do provide you with this laser cut acrylic lineup or spacer tool here. Now, if you get one on eBay, you're probably not going to get something like this. You'll have to just double-side sticky tape to it or do some 3D printing. But with this one, we got a laser cut lineup tool, and hopefully it's going to make it a lot easier to align the screen with the front glass. I don't want this offset or anything like that. There's these little fold-out tabs on the back of the screen that'll go right through this little acrylic spacer. So I got that set up. Now it's time to add the controller board. I just used a little bit of included double-sided sticky tape, plugged it into the screen itself, line it up here so the ribbon cable isn't obstructed, and it looks like this is going to work out pretty good. Now we still have these little tabs that folded out and went through the spacer. These are also going to go through the PCB. This is just going to hold everything in place, and you really need to make sure you line it up properly. Just going to fold these tabs down to hold the screen to the PCB and plug in the ribbon cable. Now before I slam the front half on, I do want to make sure that the LCD does work. And there we have it. I don't have a game in, so we have that Nintendo logo kind of blacked out here. Alright, so I know it's working. It's time to slam the front half together. I need to put the buttons in and the conductive pads. So I have the buttons and conductive pads in place. I just want to test fit this, but I do need to pull off that screen protector. Make sure the speaker fits in here properly with the wiring. And it looks pretty good. I just need to put the screws in, but first things first, I do need to pull that protective layer off of the screen. We don't want to leave that there. So just to recap here, we went with a DMG that looks something like this. I mean, it's definitely pretty beat up, to something that looks like this. So overall, I think it turned out amazingly. I personally really like the color scheme here. Like I mentioned, I did want to go with that mint green shell with the pink buttons, but I think this came out pretty good. And after all, it is for my 9-year-old daughter, so I'm pretty sure she's going to fall in love with this thing once she sees it. So before you take a look at this new IPS screen, I did want to give you a quick look at the Easy Flash Junior. This is really easy to use. They go for around $30 to $40. I'm sure you could find it for cheaper. Some of them do come with micro SD cards, some of them don't. Mine didn't, so I'm just using an 8GB card that I had laying around, and I think that's plenty for original Game Boy games. It's got a built-in battery, so it will back up your saves. And all you're really going to do is put the little config file on the micro SD card, add some games, plug it into your DMG, a Game Boy Color, or even a Game Boy Advance, and you'll have a menu that pops up with all the games you've added to the micro SD card. And I have updated the firmware on this flash card and added some games that I know my daughter's going to love, like some Kirby, some Pokemon, and even Adventure Island. So I can already tell you that this IPS screen is amazing, and I've only been looking at text. I haven't even gotten to any gameplay yet. But it does offer a little feature that I personally like, color palettes. If you press in on your brightness control knob, you can change it between a few. But personally, I like the second option. So if we press this one time, it's going to give us kind of a colorized look. Option number 3 does kind of the same thing, but we also have blue, green, red, yellow, and purple. When I'm using this, and I'll probably be using it a lot, I'm going to stick with the option number 2. I just like the way it looks, and it definitely brightens it up. For me, it's a lot easier to see. And overall, this IPS screen is absolutely amazing. It's got 4 times the resolution of the original screen that came in the DMG. It's not so much that you lose those pixels, but it does clean the image up, especially around text and around the edges. It just looks really good in this machine. So here we have Kirby's Dream Land 2. I'm going to go through the color options. But still, even with this game, and I think most, I'll be sticking to option number 2. I like the colorization it gives it. It's not too overboard, and it doesn't wash everything out. I just think it looks really good, especially with a game like this. But yeah, it's crazy how good this little screen looks, and I hope it's coming across on camera. This is something I'll probably do to a couple more DMGs. And everybody's familiar with this screen here from Pokemon. Unfortunately, it does turn Ditto yellow, so it will turn Pikachu yellow in this game. I just can't get over how crisp the image looks with this IPS installed. So is it worth doing? Personally, I'd say yeah. I mean, I got mine for around $64, and I have seen them for cheaper. It's the RIPS version 2 IPS screen for the DMG. But there is one thing that we're really missing out on here. The green on this is a little too dark when you compare it to the original DMG screen. I kind of wish they would have toned this back a little bit. I mean, it still looks decent because we have that super crisp image, but I do wish it wasn't so dark so we could keep that original look. But I'd say the best mod you can do to your DMG is picking up one of these Easy Flash Juniors. It's just super simple to use. You can set up an 8GB SD card and have all the games you ever wanted to play on the original Game Boy from this cart here. But that's pretty much it for this video. I really appreciate you watching. If you're interested in picking up this screen or anything you saw in this video, I will leave links to retro modding in the description. Like I mentioned, this video was not sponsored. I had to pay out of pocket for this. But in the end, I think it was totally worth it, and I think my daughter's going to absolutely love this new DMG. If you want to see a certain game running on this IPS screen, or if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. But like always, thanks for watching.